This video is brought to you by Squarespace. The advanced beginner stage is quite possibly the most common plateau guitar players find themselves on. You know your chords, maybe a scale shape or two, a little theory, and you probably have a decent catalog of basic songs that you can play. But that's kind of where it all came to a screeching halt. So how do you regain your forward momentum and propel yourself into intermediate territory? Let's find out. I just want to quickly mention that I'm battling the flu at the moment, so apologies in advance if this video is lacking a bit of energy. I'm gonna do my best. So first things first, I think we need to properly define this advanced beginner stage. Too often, we divide guitar progress up into three categories: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. But I think it's important to acknowledge this advanced beginner stage that sits right on the edge between beginner and intermediate. An advanced beginner would confidently know all their open chords. They would be able to throw a couple bar chords into a chord progression. They would know a majority of the most popular strumming patterns. They'd have at least one position of a pentatonic or major scale ready to go. They'd know the basics of music theory as it applies to the guitar, and they would know how to play a decent number of songs from start to finish. It's possible that they've dabbled in a few other techniques and concepts, but that's pretty much the gist of it. What they wouldn't be able to do yet is efficiently navigate the fretboard, feel comfortable playing in every key, add cool dynamics to their rhythm playing, figure out songs by ear, improvise a decent solo, or tackle more challenging songs that go beyond chords, strumming patterns, and simple riffs. So if you feel like you might fall somewhere into this advanced beginner category, what exactly is it that is holding you back? Well, it's a little more complicated than just putting in more hours or pushing yourself to learn harder techniques. The reason you're not pushing past this plateau is because you're trying to finish a puzzle without all the pieces. Now, the first and what I think is the most important missing piece here is connection. When you take the time to learn a new song, it's likely that the chord shapes, progressions, riffs, or melodies, they all kind of live on their own little island. They only exist for you within that song. What good guitar players are able to do is find a connection between something new to something that they already understand. So when you learn a new chord progression, you want to know how and why those chords work together so well. That way you can take these new chords or that new riff and turn it into a creative tool for you to adapt and use elsewhere. The easiest way to build these connections is with a little bit of theory knowledge. And I'm not talking about a lot. The amount of theory you really need to get to the next level can be learned in about 15 to 20 minutes. I have a video that covers all of these essential concepts. If you're interested in checking it out after this one, I'll link it under referenced videos in the description. Another massively important kind of connection you need to develop is the connection between your ears and your fingers. So often guitar players are only thinking about the tabs in front of them or focusing on replicating a series of movements. They're not actually listening closely to what it is they're playing and how that fits into the music they're playing over. Now, learning how to use your ear is actually a lot easier than you might think. It all starts with some really simple ear training. And one of the ways I like to recommend players start is with finding the key of a song by ear. There are a few different methods for this, but my absolute favorite involves taking a simple beginner major scale shape like this one, and moving it up and down the fretboard until it fits. It will only truly sound good in one spot. Every other position will have at least one note that doesn't sound quite right. This is because every song must have a key, and every key just comes from its corresponding major scale. So once you find a major scale position that fits, the name of that scale, which comes from the note you start and end on, will match the name of the key. Let me give you an example. So let's start by trying the major scale in the position we first learned, which is right here. You can hear those notes kind of clash with the track, and that's because this is a C major scale, and this song is clearly not in the key of C major. So let's try moving it up one position. It still does not sound like all the notes fit, right? It sounds pretty dissonant. Let's try moving down. Still not quite right. Let's move down one more. That sounds right. Let's listen to every single note and go slow. sounds to me like every note fits over this track. So now all I have to do is find the name of this major scale, which the note it is starting on and ending on is a B flat, making this song in the key of B flat major. It might take a little bit to get the hang of, but once you get it, you can start doing this with any song you want. The more you practice this, the better your ear will get, and the faster you'll be able to recognize when you're in the right key. There are a bunch of other great ear training exercises out there as well, so don't be afraid to dabble in those too. Whether you're looking to start a business, get your music out there, or basically anything else, you need your own website, and nobody makes it easier than Squarespace. Earlier this year, I set up my own new website using Squarespace, and the whole process was quick, easy, and ridiculously straightforward. Their design intelligence essentially gives you your own personal professional designer to help you create a site that perfectly fits your vibe. Their built-in payment tools are top tier and easy to set up, and they include all the most popular payment options like Apple Pay, Klarna, and Afterpay. Plus, if you're looking to sell anything like courses or custom merch, you'll have all the tools to do that directly on your site too. So if you're ready to get started on your new website, go to squarespace.com/Andrew Clarke to start your free trial and get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. Big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the lesson. Another big missing piece that I noticed comes down to technique. Now, you'll be developing your technique for as long as you continue to play guitar, so it's not about mastering the instrument overnight. What I'm talking about is learning how to identify problem areas and bad habits. Because if you're working on something with incorrect technique, it's not going to matter how much time you put in. You're just going to keep spinning your tires. So how do we identify these bad habits? Well, if you've been playing guitar for any amount of time, it's pretty easy to watch someone else play and be able to pick out the things they do right and the things that they do wrong. What is much more challenging is recognizing these things in our own playing in real time. Is your picking hand in the right position, and is it relaxed, or does it have a death grip on the pick? Do your fingers fly away from the fretboard whenever you try and play through a scale or a riff, or are your fingers making small, efficient movements? Are your notes inconsistent and sloppy, or do they come through cleanly without any buzz? Is your strumming choppy, disjointed, and lacking flow, or is it smooth, dynamic, and in time? Some or all of these things could be holding you back. And the best way to identify them is to record yourself and track your progress. If we can judge a video of someone else playing, we can surely be honest and judge a video of ourselves. So towards the end of every practice session, sit down, set up your phone, and record yourself playing something. You don't ever have to share it with someone unless you feel comfortable getting outside feedback, but watch the video back and be really critical. Even use a journal to write down the date and all the good and bad things you notice. This will allow you to actually target and fix the things in your technique that are keeping you from moving forward. It can also be a great motivator when you look back at your playing in the past and see how far you've come. The final piece of the puzzle is practice. I think it's pretty common to feel like if you just had more hours to practice each week, you'd finally be able to get over this hump and progress into the intermediate class. And while much of guitar progress comes from consistency, dedication, and the hours you put in, if you're putting those hours in the wrong places, you're just gonna keep floundering. So how can you optimize your practice and make the time you spend with the instrument more impactful? Well, the first thing that I see is people trying to learn too many things at once. You'll watch a YouTube video or find something online that tells you to try a new shape or concept, and you'll try and cram that into an ever-growing list of things you're actively practicing. That new thing will probably stick around for a day or two, then it'll fade into obscurity to join the other things you have learned and can't remember anymore. The key here is to only practice a few things at a time to really develop each of those things into something you can use. Because it's not about how much you know, it's about how you can use what you know. So don't try and practice 10 new chord shapes spread across a week. Pick one or two and dedicate time to them every single time you practice. Once those are fully integrated into your muscle memory and mind, you can move on to the next one and do the same. This goes for theory stuff too. You don't need to learn to play in every single key at the same time. Put all your efforts into one and really focus on mastering it before adding the next. Ultimately, the optimal number of things you choose to practice is going going to vary from player to player, but just remember that you want to actually be able to apply the new things you learn in the future. Otherwise, what's the point of even learning them? Now, speaking of applying things, you need to include musical application into your practice. Music is a language, and sitting in a room talking to yourself isn't nearly as effective as having conversations with others. Best case scenario is getting out there and playing with other people. No matter what level you're at, nothing will have you progressing faster or having more fun while doing it. But this isn't always something we can all access. So the next best thing is making sure that everything we learn can be used along to a backing track or song. So if you learn how to play the B-flat major pentatonic scale, then you need to make sure you're practicing it over a song or track in the key of B-flat major like this. If you're working on an entire song, then it's as simple as practicing that song along to the actual track. Even if you have to slow it down to do so, there are a bunch of apps and tools out there that can help you do that. As far as how much time you should spend practicing, it's always going to be best to break it up into smaller, more frequent chunks. So rather than 3 or 4 hours over the weekend, try and play for 10, 15, or 20 minutes every day. And even better than that, twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. Even though you're not able to get into super deep practice, you're training your hands, your ears, and your mind to see the guitar as something consistent in your day-to-day life. You can still have those longer practice sessions on the weekends, but those shorter moments throughout the week are going to have a much more significant overall impact on your progress. So what would a practice routine look like that includes all the tips we mentioned throughout this video? Well, I have a perfect next lesson for you. It's all about the exact exercises I think you should practice every day to see the biggest results. I'll put a link to that up in the middle of the screen for you. New practice tips video will also be up over on Patreon for those of you that are members. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.